knew the brain impacts our leadership style so much? I sure didn't. And in this week's episode, Rachel Russo discusses conscious leadership. She explains that conscious leadership is learning how to respond, not react. She will tell us we need to take a breath rather than exhale fire like a dragon, as that breath signals to our prefrontal cortex that we are safe. In the next 30 minutes, I guarantee you're going to learn the power of journaling again, how to slow down your reaction time as a leader, and amazing strategies to build trust in order to ensure positive collaboration with your team. This extraordinary leadership episode starts in less than 2 minutes.
Welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast with your host, Justin Tamzett. With over 30 years in the fitness industry, JT is a globally recognized authority with a mission to lower healthcare costs worldwide by getting more people moving and moving more often in quality facilities with qualified professionals. Every episode, JT digs deep with our guests to bring you insights that will help you lead, innovate, and boost your bottom line. So let's dive in. Take it away, JT.
You all know why I do what I do. It's to reduce the healthcare costs around the globe by getting more people moving and moving more often. Of course, I do this with my Rex Roundtables and other coaching programs, but the Fitness Business Podcast is critical to reaching even more people to help me achieve my why. I also know that many fitness industry people are visual, so that's why we've launched our YouTube channel. If you prefer to watch our guests and myself in action, then simply head to youtube.com/The Fitness Business Podcast. And for the visual learners, head to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/online events and register for our upcoming webinars. We've already got 6 in the bag and you can watch another 2 that are coming up. These are 30 minutes, visual, and packed with real ideas for you. It's time for our Season 4 giveaway.
The FBP community might just want a fresh new voice. I'm Zoe and the Future Fitness Business Podcast host. You have the chance to win a $100 Amazon voucher to grow your professional library. Here's how it works. After the main interview, I'll drop a secret code word. Once you hear it, head over to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/code word. Pop in the code and tell us in 30 words or less why you love the podcast. All right, let's get on to the main interview.
You all know I love leadership because average leaders attract average team members and businesses perform at an average level. Great leaders attract great team members and together they set a platform for a great business. So when I found Rachel on LinkedIn and saw her sweet spot is conscious leadership, I just had to get her on the show. I wanted her to drop nuggets of knowledge for you on a different perspective to leadership. So I simply start this week's episode by asking her, what is conscious leadership and how is it different from perhaps more traditional leadership models we might know?
Yeah, it's honestly probably the biggest question everyone asks, and sometimes the hardest to answer because consciousness is almost intangible, right? Like, what are we talking about? So just the traditional definition of consciousness is the state of being aware and responsive to one's surroundings. So, understanding who you are and how you affect the world. Something I love to do when I'm explaining consciousness is let's do the opposite because I think it's easier to see, which is like, what is an unconscious leader? And so an unconscious leader is someone on autopilot. We've all worked for one, maybe been one at times. It's when we're reacting without awareness, when the world around us, someone quits, we, freak out. Things are happening. We're not hitting our goals. We just kind of make a reaction that's based off that. We don't take a moment. When we're unconscious, we tend to judge ourselves, blame others, and act from fear. And so that really is when we're unconsciously leading. Consciousness and conscious leadership is the opposite. You're aware of yourself. You're aware of your triggers. You're aware of your impact. You lead not from judging, but from curiosity and compassion and freedom. So you actually take a moment before you respond. So it starts with the inside out. It starts with yourself and really knowing who you are consciously before you go to lead teams. And if we think about it from traditional leadership asks different questions than conscious leadership does. Traditional leadership asks, how do I get my people to perform better? Whereas conscious leadership asks, who am I being that impacts the way my people perform? So you can kind of start to see that it really comes from the way you are acting and how does that impact, which is what the definition of conscious is, and how does that impact the people around you, the systems around you, and how is it impacting the results that you're getting?
There's probably a lot of people here listening today that as leaders, shit goes down and then shit comes out of their mouth. So am I reading that conscious leadership is actually just like holding your tongue and pausing for 2, 3, 4 seconds before responding? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So I love to say conscious leadership is learning how to respond, not react. And so that's what we're talking about. And what we're asking you to do is when you pause and take a breath, you actually start to turn on your prefrontal cortex. So when you're reacting right away unconsciously, you're in fight, flight, freeze. And that happens in a very old part of your brain called your reptilian brain that's millions of years old. It's crazy. Even when I say it, I'm like, that's not the right number. But, whereas our prefrontal cortex is actually where logic and language happen. So when we're unconscious and just reacting, we're in these old ways of reaction and we're unsafe. We're in fight, flight, freeze. And you see it in meetings all the time, right? So it's like, am I a fighter? Am I going to sit forward and get angry and fight you in this meeting? Am I going to run away and be like, yeah, I'll get back to you on that. We should just finish now and, close your laptop and run away? Or do you freeze, which is like, I can't think of the answer. I don't know the answer. So what conscious leadership starts to do, and what I recommend people do, is in that moment, take a breath. Because when you breathe, you signal to your body that you're safe and you actually turn on your prefrontal cortex. So you are 100% right. It is that pausing and taking that moment before reacting, just like it. And that's sometimes hard in some of our industries, but it's really important.
And I'm guessing the first time you start doing this, that little pause feels like 5 minutes, but in reality, it's probably 3 seconds.
Exactly. This is a habit. So because our brains are so old, they're programmed in a certain way. And what conscious leadership is all about is that reprogramming of your brain. You might have heard it as neuroplasticity, which is allows your brain to create new neural pathways. So that's what we're doing. Because if not, when you're reacting, you're not actually in the present moment when you're in fight, flight, freeze. You're in the past from old behaviors, old decisions, old bosses, old team members, and your brain, because of the way it's programmed and the way that we're able to, really quickly retrieve times in our life we don't feel safe, consciously or unconsciously. Most of this is 30 seconds unconscious. You react based on all these past moments in work. And I'm going to tell you something that always parents especially hate is you programmed your brain when you were 7. So the first time you decided who you were and how you live in the world successfully is the first stage of brain development. And that's when you're 7 years old. So if you don't get conscious of these things, some of your reactions are actually like literally you as a child responding as an adult.
This whole science thing is quite fascinating when you start talking about the brain and leadership. I also like how you committed earlier that you said that you've written the first of 3 books.
Thank you.
We'll get you back on when book number 2 comes out.
Love
But
that.
the first book, and if you're not watching this on YouTube, which of course you can at the Fitness Business Podcast YouTube channel, over Rachel's left shoulder looks like her journal,
It
which is her
is.
first book. So I'm guessing that journal helps me step my way through into conscious leadership. What sort of things do you talk about in the book?
Yes, exactly. So I knew I was always going to write a book. I had no idea I was going to write a journal, which is so different. And I think that really came from I wanted to give you tools, science-based tools. I think because I grew up in the corporate space for so long and was very fortunate in my roles, I got high-level leadership roles at quite young ages, but I was always told, you're a little different. You're a little woo-woo. It's a little, and I made that mean I wasn't smart enough. I made it mean that what I was sharing wasn't strategic enough. And so I think there's a little bit of that in writing my book because I wanted to ensure that everything I shared was science-based. So even though there's ancient wisdom in there, we go into a lot of incredible information, it's all steeped and grounded in science. So what I did was give you a 3-month journey of awareness. It's called the Art of Awareness because it's really understanding awareness. And you get 12 different awareness tools that allow you to gain awareness as a whole person. So I think a lot of the times for me, like I graduated in psychology, I did leadership, I'm a coach, I'm a yoga instructor and Reiki healer. And I love each piece of this, but I did find each of them a little bit limited. So I brought them all together. And so this is a holistic approach, which means you get 3 journeys over 3 months. I ask you to journal 15 minutes a day. It's all guided in 12 different tools, mind, body, heart, and soul. So we really start to look at not just consciousness a lot of times lives in your mind. And I think a lot of times we just think, oh, consciousness is my mind, but your body has so much wisdom to share. And your heart holds so much knowledge, but also sometimes like past ache, I find, and maybe past heartbreak. And then your soul, which is this beautiful piece of you that if we can tap into, we really, with meditation, with mindfulness. And I really, want to give a nod to the parts of my book that are actually using these beautiful ancient knowledges from people, the Buddha that brought in mindfulness and brought in this idea of consciousness that really happened in India many, many years ago. So I feel very fortunate to bring these ancient knowledges forward for people in a real new capacity in leadership that we might not have been able to do before. I wrote this book in Northern Ontario in a forest, living off the grid. And what came through in the book, which is why I said 3, is my method called the Conscious Arc Method. And so what that actually does is gives you 3 really easy shifts to raise your consciousness. So it's awareness, responsibility, and choice. And I know they sound simple, and they are simple, but I wanted to make sure that you had the tools because I do find, I don't know about you, but I'm scrolling on Instagram and I read this really great quote that's like, let go of everything that's not serving you and don't make it mean anything. And I'm like, hell yeah, that is what I want to do. But then how? I always found like I was a little bit short. I'd read a really inspiring book, but it didn't always give me the how. And I think that's why I wrote this book. This is the how to raise your consciousness. And it's the first step, which everyone's talking about right now. It's kind of a buzzword, I think, right now in leadership and in the world, which is awareness.
So, Rachel, what is the science behind journaling every day? Let's
Yes.
debunk all the myths. What is the science behind it?
There is actually incredible research behind journaling every day. Like I found journaling just by really, I'm not even joking, loving different colored pens. I journal with different colored pens. I love it. I think it's like my years of maybe coloring as a child and loving that. But there is real science behind journaling. And that's kind of the 13th tool in my book. I give you 12 tools through journaling where we're looking at making journaling a habit. So the research shows that journaling can decrease stress. It can improve sleep quality, improve your immune system, increase creativity, increase focus. So they're actually finding really, really incredible results from journaling. And it really is giving you a moment to reflect. And that is a huge piece in leadership that I don't think we tend to do, especially when we are customer focused facing, right? Like in the office, it might be a little bit easier because you're not facing your customer. But in the fitness industry, in hospitality, we are on the floor in retail with our customers and with our clients all the time. And we tend to not take a moment to stop and reflect. And what bringing journaling into your leadership, but even into your world, is it gives you a moment to get everything that's in your brain out. And they find that when you're writing, you can get into your subconscious. You can do it too on the phone. Again, I'm old school. I do love a journal. I know, exactly. I'm like, where are my pens? I literally have a pack of 8 colored pens that it allows you to get into your subconscious in a way that speaking, in a way that being on your phone doesn't, so that you can allow that to really come out and be on a page, and it gives you that space. It's kind of like, experts have said, write your to-do list before you go to bed for the next day so it clears your mind. Journaling has that effect, but so many great people have journaled. So we see it over and over again that the research shows that journaling as a habit in your life can change your life and your immune system, supposedly.
Who knew? All right. So, everybody listening, stop drinking wine at night because that's not going to boost your immune system, although there are antioxidants. All right. Let's move on. I'm curious, even with this conscious leadership side of things, how as leaders can we inspire more trust? And the inward at the moment is collaboration in our teams.
Yes. So trust is, I really believe, earned. And it's how you come into your teams and work with your teams. And trust starts by you trusting yourself. And I believe trust starts with yourself when you know yourself. So understanding what drives you, what triggers you, how your past influences your present leadership, that is really an important part of trust. And then from trust, you can create collaboration, because collaboration is all about feeling safe, and trust creates safety. So, psychological safety is talked about a lot right now in leadership and how to build psychological safety. And I really feel that when you're conscious as a leader, when you really know yourself as a leader, that trust is almost easier, quicker to build, because you're able to come forth vulnerable. You don't have a mask on. You're not playing a role of leadership, of who you're meant to be. And you are able to be vulnerable and share your mistakes. And I think that's a big part of building trust with your team, is being able to share those mistakes. And I know, you're in the fitness industry and your podcast is talking from a fitness perspective. And what I think is really cool, if we think about it from that industry, is you actually have 2 things that other industries don't have that you can really play on and use in leadership in the fitness industry. So one is your people, your trainers, they know themselves on a physical level. So they've done a lot of work, right? Like I told you before, I've done a bodybuilding competition. I get it.
They know how many calories are in poached chicken.
Chicken and lettuce was my meal 6 times a day by the end, all those boiled eggs, but my poor partner. So by already having that ability to know themselves, know how to push themselves on a physical level, I think it actually allows you to create trust, knowing each other, but then the opportunity is to expand that knowledge from knowing your physical body to knowing your emotional body, to knowing your mind a little bit more. I think that in, fitness industry is really good about pushing you past your limits. Becoming conscious is not easy. You're reprogramming your brain. And so it is pushing you past the limits of what society has told you you're allowed to do. Like when I started to raise my consciousness, I'm not joking, my first aha moment was like, oh, so my dad has a bad temper. I don't have to have a bad temper. what? That's weird.
Yeah.
And that was my first understanding of like, I can be who I was before the world told me who I needed to be. Before my 7-year-old brain, my 7-year-old self, she was cute, but not the smartest, like programmed my brain that my 45-year-old self is living out, you know? So I think from that perspective for fitness leaders, you have this really great way that people already know how to dig in. So how do we just use the existing skill set and expand it? The other piece from a trust perspective that you guys have in the fitness industry that I love is you have a real shared purpose of helping people.
Yes, we do.
And when you have that shared purpose, it just allows for trust in a different way to be built because you know we all have the purpose that we're here for a greater mission of helping people be healthy. Like in your industry, you are helping people live longer. And like what greater gift can we give to another human than help them live a little bit longer and maybe be a little bit happier as they're doing it? So those two pieces for me, for leaders in the fitness industry, I would really use to build that trust to make sure that we're not taking that for granted because there's a lot of industries that actually don't have that you really as leaders can use to build trust. And then collaboration comes from people feeling safe. And so once you have that trusting relationship, once you're able to create those places that they can say something, because honestly, most first ideas are not successful. So how do we create a space where people can like throw the craziest idea? Like writing a journal for me was the most insane idea I've ever had. And, so how do you allow your team to feel safe to bring forward their crazy ideas?
I love that correlation of trust and to leading into collaboration. I think that's awesome. But surely there's got to be some blind spots. What do you see in leaders today around blind spots? And then do we actually erase those blind spots? Do we become conscious of them and just live around them? Or do we shift them? What does that look like?
Yeah, so blind spots are real. They're who knew we were going to do a brain podcast, but they are how your brain's programmed, right? It creates blind spots by you decide something and then your brain goes, okay, that's truth. And, we know that it lets go of any situations or experiences that don't align with what you've decided to be true. So those blind spots are real and they're obviously real for all humans, and leaders to be aware of them is really important. It's where awareness comes into play. Now, some of the most common blind spots I see, I think the big kind of overarching one I can share is like when you're in your blind spots, leaders don't see how they're contributing to the very problem they're facing. Like when I'm coaching leaders, that's probably one of the biggest things I'm holding space for and helping leaders see, which is rather than being right, which is a blind spot. If you're like, I'm 100% right and everyone else is wrong, and I don't even want to hear any other ideas or any other perspectives, that's a good indication you're in your blind spot. So really being able to see how potentially, like I shared at the beginning, like how am I being that might be co-creating and contributing to some of these experiences or maybe opportunities I'm seeing on my team. I see blaming, it really is judging yourself harshly. It's what I really help leaders shift, which is judging yourself, blaming others, and acting from fear.
Can you say those three again?
Yeah, so it's judging ourselves, blaming others, and acting from fear. And you can see it when we avoid the hard conversations. That's probably one of the biggest blind spots I see as well, right? And I can give you this as an example. So we avoid the hard conversation, and that's usually based off of our own beliefs that we're not aware of. I'm being mean, they'll fix it, they'll understand. Feedback means I'm going to fire them. Like if you're not aware of what you feel is stopping you or what is stopping you from having these conversations, it just stops you. And then you get to the point, which is I've seen many times in leadership, which is like, I need to fire them. And it's taking that step back and really seeing, was there conversations that I didn't have throughout maybe this? And was there coaching opportunities? That's another great thing about the fitness industry as conscious leadership and conscious leaders is coaching is so important. Asking those questions. Asking questions of yourself, but asking questions of others. And I think because people are already trained to be coaches in different ways, it's like, how do you bring that coaching knowledge of getting your clients really engaged and excited, and how do you bring those skills you already have and bring them into leadership? It's not different, it's actually very similar. And so starting to shift and bringing that awareness in, and for fitness leaders, bring in your strengths to help to combat those blind spots. Now, you did ask, do you shift the blind spots? Do you leave them there? What do you do with these blind spots? Because you're human
Yeah.
and everyone has them. So there's a few things. This is really where my conscious arc really comes into play, because I believe what we are doing is shifting them, rerouting slash reworking your old belief systems through understanding your emotions, getting into your body. I use 3 behaviors, so awareness, responsibility, and choice. And so with that blind spot, we would start with awareness. Why? Why is this blind spot here? Where did it come from? Where do I feel it in my body? Just really getting curious. Now, responsibility for me to shift your blind spot is a little bit different. I don't define responsibility the way the world defines responsibility. Not that anyone's surprised. Which is the second journal that will be coming. So in the world, we know responsibility as it's like my fault. I take ownership. I've done this. But that for me, when I've watched that, keeps you stuck in the blind spot. Because anytime you're in judgment, you can't shift. So if you judge like, oh, I know I always do that, it's going to keep you stuck. I define responsibility as using loving kindness to bring yourself back into balance. That is what I believe your responsibility is when you're trying to raise your consciousness or shift any of your blind spots. Because when you're out of balance, you're not in the present moment. You're in that reactive state. You're in an old part of your brain. So all you need to do is find ways. And in the next journal, I will give you an additional few tools, but also take the tools that I taught in the first Art of Awareness and give you the next level. How do you take those tools and now take responsibility for what you found in the first journal? And that really is, different ways. It could be meditation. It could be walking outside, just finding your ways that bring you back into balance. And then you have a new choice. And again, for me, choice is defined as courageous trust to live in alignment with your values. So that means speaking your truth. That means knowing your boundaries and sharing your boundaries. But what I often see is someone has an awareness of a blind spot and they're like, okay, well, I want to fix it now. Like, why am I still doing this? And so what happens is they jump from awareness to choice. And that middle responsibility, where for me lives all in your heart, that whole journal is going to be about your heart and using heart chakra wisdom, this beautiful ancient wisdom, to really understand and unlock how do you bring yourself into balance and then make a new choice. Because courage is not hiding from your patterns, but really being responsible for them so that you can start to shift them.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. Very, very cool. Now, I got one killer question to go. But before I get to that killer question,
Okay.
if anybody's listening and they go, oh my gosh, what she's saying really resonates with me, how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah. So definitely on my website, so consciousartco.com. I am on LinkedIn under Rachel Russo or Conscious Art Co., both my company and myself. I am on Instagram. So again, Conscious Art Co. You can find me there.
We will put all of the links in the show notes as well. So, all right, here's my killer question to finish.
Okay.
We want all of our listeners to start writing their playbook for 2026. For someone who wants to start showing up more consciously as a leader, where the hell is the best place to begin?
Yes, good question. I love that.
I told you it was a killer.
You said killer in your Australian accent, which is like killer. So thank you for that. I miss the accent. I miss Australia. So somewhere to start is with curiosity. It is, I know it, sometimes when I'm talking, I'm like, oh, that sounds so easy. Just get curious, right? That's why my first step is awareness. But the definition of awareness for me is non-judgmental curiosity, because what I've seen through years of coaching leaders and working in leadership is people get aware of something and then judge themselves, which is, like I said before, it stops you. It stops you from shifting. It stops you from growing. Judgment is the antidote to doing anything, or the kryptonite, I should say. Judgment is the kryptonite.
Yeah.
So the antidote to that is curiosity, asking why. As leaders, we want to create space to ask our team for feedback. We often as leaders are giving feedback all the time, but do we create space for us to be able to hear feedback? Do we create space to reflect and recover? I think, again, the fitness industry has been talking about recovery for so long, right? We know that when you're building muscle, you have to recover or you create injury. Take this concept and apply it to leadership. It's the same. If you are going and going and going and not giving yourself time to recover, not giving yourself time to reflect, not giving yourself time to be curious, just like you would, hurt yourself or stretch your muscle or overwork your muscle, the same thing happens with your leadership muscle. So curiosity actually starts to work your mind. And I know your listeners know, and your leaders, your, fitness leaders know that we have to get into the gym consistently, right? To build muscle, we're not just like, oh, I go to the gym once a month, and it's like, well, then you're going to plateau. You're going to stay the same or maybe get worse. Building your conscious muscle is the exact same, but we need to do it with our mind. So getting curious is a great way. Building in, like I said, reflection and recovery, meditating or building in a breathing practice. I told you earlier that taking a breath turns on your prefrontal cortex, and you were right to say it's not easy. Humans actually don't breathe well. Most of us, we breathe very shallow, which is telling your body constantly and your nervous system that you should be afraid and not in a safe environment. So what we're doing here is calming not just our brain, but our nervous system. So really bringing in, how do you bring curiosity, non-judgmental curiosity, into your everyday? Ask one more question. If you're stuck and you feel like your heels are dug in and you're like, I'm right, you're wrong, ask a question. It's that coaching approach, but it starts with asking ourselves why. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I reacting this way? Why am I stuck in this old pattern?
I think you could drop the mic and exit stage right with that last statement. I love that. Has been an absolutely fascinating chat today, Rachel. I'm sure everybody listening is sitting on the edge of their seat going, wow, I never knew there was so much science to leadership. I loved how you weaved the metaphor of how we train in gyms into leadership. It's been sensational, and I'm so grateful for your time and your energy that you put into this interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I've had so much fun.
I have to confess, since I recorded the interview with Rachel, I've been working super hard on taking that breath, just allowing me to respond rather than reacting. Such a simple tip. Now, if you know anyone, or maybe just 3 people who would get value from listening to this episode, we'd be so grateful if you just share it with them. Simply share fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/549. Thank you in advance. Now, our podcast would not be possible with incredible support, so I ask you to support these Rex Roundtable trusted suppliers. Power Systems, your one-stop shop for equipment, functional training, recovery, and storage. Les Mills, offering group fitness classes and solutions. Instinctive Insights, proven profit-driven marketing using data science. HireBob.ai, sell memberships, service existing customers, and provide motivational fitness support through AI. Alico, supplying premium strength training equipment.
Hey JT, it's Sam from What Bike here. Uh, I love the Fitness Business podcast. I think what brings me back again and again is just the breadth of guests that you have on and just the variety of topics that get covered. So looking forward to continuing to be a listener for a long time. All the best, mate.
And the code word for this episode is conscious. Go to thefitnessbusinesspodcast.com/code word for your chance to win a $100 Amazon gift voucher. Use the code word conscious.
The Fitness Business Podcast has always embraced the belief that our true legacy is about the lives that we touch and the impact that we have on the fitness industry community. The ancient philosopher Pericles understood that the greatest tributes are the lasting impressions we leave on people. And we believe that the real measure of our success is to connect, guide, and positively influence our industry. And for you, the relevance, it isn't about the size of your facility or the equipment you own. It's about the lives that you change. As fitness professionals, we have the incredible opportunity to shape lives with every interaction, every piece of advice, and every encouragement we offer. Remember, the most enduring legacy you can leave is woven into the success, well-being, and the growth of those you serve. That's why our sign-off for every show is, what we leave behind is not set in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.